Hi guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm doing another recent reads. So the last time I did this, I was not enjoying a lot of the books that I had read. I think I had like a DNF, quite a few 3-star books, maybe a 4-star had made it into there, but like I said, I was not enjoying anything I was picking up. This time though, I only have a few 3-star books to talk about, but the rest are all 4-star books, and I even have one 5-star book that I am really excited to tell you guys about. So we are going to go ahead and just jump right into it. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Soulmate by Sally Hempworth. This is a adult mystery, and this is my first book by Sally Hempworth, and I believe she has quite a few books out at this point, but this one follows our two main characters, Pippa and Gabe. They are married. At the beginning of the story, they are living at this cottage that is on like close to the edge of this cliff that unfortunately is the location where people come to end their life. Gabe is usually the one that will go out there and try to talk people out of ending their life, and he has been pretty successful at being able to do that. But at the beginning of the story, Pippa sees Gabe out there talking to this woman. Obviously, the woman is out there trying to end her life, and Pippa sees, Gabe out there talking to her. The next thing Pippa knows, the woman has gone over the edge. We learned pretty quickly that Gabe may have known who this woman was, and the story kind of takes off from there with us trying to figure out whether or not Gabe actually knew who this woman was, and if so, why? Why did she go over the edge, and why was he out there talking to her? Obviously, I gave this one 3 stars. I really enjoyed learning about Pippa and Gabe's marriage, how they got together, the ins and outs of their marriage, because we learn at the beginning that their marriage is not at a great place. And we kind of learn throughout the story why is their marriage not doing so well, and how is this tied into everything. And so I really loved just learning about them as people individually, Pippa and Gabe, and then just learning about everything leading up to this moment. And I also liked, in regards to the mystery, some of the twists that were revealed at the end. Some of them I could predict. There was a couple of them that I had no idea that they were coming, and boy, were they a twist. And so I really loved that aspect of it. Now, one of the things that I really did not like was the whole timeline situation. So this is told in a then, now, before, and after timeline. And normally I love a good, past and present timeline, and something that has, short chapters, especially in like mysteries and thrillers. It just makes it feel like a page turner and makes the story go by a lot faster. But in this one, it just felt really jarring, jumping from those chapters really fast and so often. And so at times I just felt like, even though I loved learning about, Gabe and Pippa and their marriage, and we also got to see the insights of some other characters, I just felt like we didn't get to spend enough time with them because we were moving from these characters so fast. So I just didn't really care about that. And then there were parts of this mystery that I did not care about in the direction that it was moving in. It just kind of felt cheesy. That's the best word I can come up with. It just kind of felt cheesy at certain points, and I did not really care about that. So, like I said, I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It was fine. Definitely parts that I liked, parts that I didn't like. And I do plan on trying to go back and read this author's other stuff, but this one, it was okay. So the next thing that I picked up is Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Osman, graphic novel. And so this is actually a reread for me. I read this years ago when I believe this had first come out, but I decided to pick this up because I had ended up watching the Netflix show. I had not planned to watch the Netflix show. I watched it like last year. I watched it like months after it had came out. I was bored one day when it first came out. I was like, I'm never gonna watch that. It just didn't seem like my thing. When I read this one, I thought it was fine. I'm gonna just tell you right now, I gave it a 3 stars, but I thought it was fine. It wasn't anything that blew me away. Like, I thought the story was cute and I was like, it was fine. But when the show came out, it just didn't look like anything that I was gonna like. And I saw the hype around it. I saw people, I didn't watch people's videos, but I had seen everybody posting stuff about it. And then one day I started watching this video clip on YouTube, where they like clip a lot of the scenes and stuff together. And I was like, oh, this actually does look kind of good. So then I watched one episode, and then the next thing I know, I had watched all of them. And it was one of the cutest things I had ever seen in my life. And I've probably seen the series like 3 times already. So here we are. But this one, if you don't know what Heartstopper is, this follows our two main characters. We have Nick and Charlie. So they attend school together. They had never met before. Charlie is actually openly gay, and he had been bullied before. They end up being put in a class together, and Charlie falls head over heels for Nick. Nick doesn't have a clue at first, but then they end up spending a lot of time together. Charlie ends up joining the rugby team, which Nick is a part of, and then Nick starts to fall for Charlie. And so that's kind of what the story is about. I still rated this one a 3 stars. I really enjoyed the show, but I just thought this was fine. A lot of people enjoy the graphic novels. I've only read the first one. I have the other 3 volumes that are out right now. So we'll see how I feel. This one literally it stopped like in the middle of a scene, which if I remember correctly, where this stopped was like episode 3 in the show. But I mean, I enjoyed it. It was fine. It was cute. I'm really not like the target audience for this, I don't think. So that's why I don't have like this huge connection to it. But I do think it's sweet. It's cute. I would recommend it. I'm only picking these up like when I'm not really enjoying the things that I read. So this is when I read this like while I was kind of bored with the things that I was reading at the time. I don't remember what I was in the middle of at the time, but it's just a nice palette cleanser. So yeah, I thought it was cute. Not sure when I'll pick up the second one. My goal is to have all of the volumes read before the second season comes out in August. So that's a thing. But yeah, I thought it was cute. So the next one that I have here is Upgrade by Blake Crouch. This is a sci-fi thriller. And this is my second book by this author. The first one that I read was Dark Matter like years ago at this point. But this one follows our main character by the name of Logan. And at the beginning of this, we find out that he works for this company called the GPA, the Gene Protection Agency. And so at the beginning of this, him and his partner are trying to track down this guy that is trying to traffic in like genetic elements. And so when they're trying to go locate something that he has trafficked in, Logan's genome ends up getting hacked. And so because of that, his body was like infected. And the thing that it was infected with ultimately kind of turns him into like this superhuman. And so he becomes faster, smarter. He's like able to not get sick anymore. So, like I said, ultimately like a superhuman. And so throughout the story, he's trying to figure out what is happening to him and why. And we kind of learn that his family, specifically his mother, might be involved because at one point, like years ago, she was involved with kind of hacking some genomes. And so there's like this mystery surrounding that. And then there's like this whole mystery of whether or not like the fate of humanity and human evolution might be in jeopardy. So that's this. I gave this a 3 stars. I thought that this was really fast paced. Like I said, it's a thriller. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of action sequences. This really read like a movie. I also felt that way when I read Dark Matter. At a certain point, it just felt like I was reading a movie. I could clearly see like everything happening. It just was really action packed. And I really liked that. I liked the idea of him becoming like this superhuman. What lost me though was a lot of the science. Me just trying to even describe what the heck was happening was hard for me. Because a lot of the science bits was kind of going over my head. I listened to this on audio and I felt myself having to read along and listen to it to really grasp what was happening at certain points. And then it took me a little bit, and this could just be me, because I don't really read a lot of sci fi, but it took me a minute to even grasp what the point of this was and why what was happening was needed. So that was a thing. And that's something I don't really like in books. When things are happening, I like to know what is the reason. Like, why are we doing this? Why are we trying to get from point A to point B? And it took me a while to figure that out. So yeah, I wasn't really a fan of that, but that could have just been me. Maybe other people probably picked up on that, but it took me a while to grasp the whole point. Like, I liked what was happening, I just didn't understand, like, but why? But why are we doing this? That's why that was what I kept asking myself throughout this book while I was listening to it. I did kind of like, we had a little bit of family drama. I can't really tell you why, because we all know that I like family drama in any of the books that I read. But there was a little bit of that, and it makes sense. Like, once I understood what the heck was going on. The other thing that I didn't like in here was, like, by the end of this, and once everything clicked into place on what was happening, why it was happening, I just really feel like if Logan could have just had a conversation with the person that he was trying to figure out all this stuff with, they probably could have came to a resolution. That was my theory. We probably could have figured this out, but that's neither here nor there. But overall, I mean, I gave this a 3 stars. It was a fun, fast-paced time, but it was okay. A lot of people have told me when I said that I was going to be reading this that Recursion is Blake Crouch's best book out of, like, this one and Dark Matter. So I do have Recursion and I plan on trying to get to that one soon. But yeah, I thought this one was fine. So then the next one that I have is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. This is a adult mystery horror. And so this one follows our main character by the name of Maggie. And at the beginning of this one, we learn that when Maggie was younger, her and her family, so Maggie, her father, and her mother had lived in this house. I think the estate was called Bainbury Hall, and they only lived there for like 20 days or so. I might be off on the days, but it was like 20 days or so. Something traumatic happened in that house. Some horrific things happened. Horrifying things happened in that house. So they only lasted a few a few days, and they never turned back. Her father ended up writing a book about their experiences in this house, and the book, like, was a New York Times bestseller. He became really famous from this book, and people, like, went out to go see the house because they wanted to see, the things that he described in this book. And throughout her life, Maggie has just assumed that everything that he had written in this book was a lie, and she had just never believed anything that her parents told her about what went on in this house. So at the beginning of this story, we learn that Maggie's father has died and he left the house to her. She didn't even know that he had bought this house, but now it's hers, and she is going to take it upon herself to restore this house and try to sell it. And so she goes back to the house, and not only does she want to restore it and try to sell it, but she actually wants to try to prove that what he wrote in this book was a lie. And so this is actually one of those books where we get a book within a book. So we have these chapters from Maggie where she's trying to get this house ready to sell, and she's trying to disprove everything that was in her father's book. But we also get these chapters from her father's book, where he is describing their family's experience in this house, starting with day one, all the way up into the day that they left and never came back. So I gave this one a 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. This was like the last book that I needed to read to get caught up with Riley Sager's backlist. And like I said, I enjoyed this book. So I did enjoy reading the chapters from Maggie's father's book more so than just reading the chapters from Maggie. And I loved just seeing the things that was happening in this house and just like the horror elements in this story. I liked the vibe of this story. This is one of, to me, one of Riley Sager's better books that I have read. It kind of revived my hope in Riley Sager from the last couple of books that I have read from him. But I did like this story. I did really enjoy the twist at the end when we find out, you know, exactly what was going on at this house and why they were having such a horrific experience in this house. And I liked how it was revealed on whether or not their experience in this house was a lie. You know, I just liked it. This book was a vibe for me. Like I said, it was one of Sager's better books for me, and I gave it a 4 stars. So then the next one that I have is Rootless by Crystal Zara Appiah. And this one is a adult contemporary fiction. And so this one we follow our two main characters. We have Sam and Effie. At the beginning of the story, we see that Sam is looking for Effie. She just up and left. And she just up and left him with their like young child. I think the little girl is three years old, maybe a little younger. But yeah, Effie just took off and went back to their home in Ghana, I believe. Yes. So they were living in London, but she just took off and went back home to Ghana and left him with the child. And so Sam is desperately trying to reach Effie and figure out what the heck is going on and why did you just leave me? And they are married at this time. And so then we get these flashback chapters. And these flashback chapters are recalling Effie and Sam's relationship from the time, I believe, when they were like in high school all the way up until this situation. And so we are just reliving their relationship, how they got together, their marriage, and we just learn just the ins and outs basically of this relationship. And we just learn how Effie never really wanted to have children, how she never really wanted to have a family, how she was basically just living this life that her parents wanted for her. And we kind of see that she's had some trauma in her past. And then we see Sam on the flip side of that, because of the trauma in his past, how he is desperately wanting a family. And these are two people who are clearly not on the same page and who are wanting two totally different things, yet they are together, they are married, and we are just watching this relationship that should not be. And I gave this a 4 stars. I probably shouldn't say I enjoyed watching this relationship because this is a train wreck of a relationship, but I did enjoy reading this because I just think this is like one of those books that I continue to say, I do think this story is so relatable, and especially in terms of Effie's situation, because there is just so much pressure put on women to have children and to want to start a family. And I just don't understand why other people don't understand that that is just not in the cards for some women. Some women don't aspire to have a family. Some women do not want to have children, and that is okay. I don't understand why it is okay for men to not want those things and that's acceptable, but if a woman doesn't want to have those things, it's looked down upon. And so we see Effie struggling with this, and we see how she is pressured not only by Sam, but she's pressured by her family and like friends of the family and all of these outside pressures of the things that she should do because that's just what's expected of her. And then the things that she struggles with once she has a child. And there in this book, it describes a few situations that have come up. And it's like she is clearly struggling and nobody is seeing it. Nobody is trying to help her. And when things happen, they get kind of like angry and frustrated at her. And it's like she is clearly reaching out and needing help, and nobody is trying to help her. I felt so bad for her. And I do kind of sort of sympathize with Sam just a little bit, because he had his own situation going on with his family, and there's a reason why he is craving a family of his own, which is fine, but he should have been with someone who was on the same page with him. And Effie was not it. She was not the person that he needed to be with. I could definitely see that there was love between these two characters and they wanted to be with each other. But I think that you can love people and not be together, and love people from a distance. But this was like sad to see. So, like I said, I gave this a 4 stars. I really enjoyed seeing their relationship and just seeing their struggles that they had, because I did think that this was like very realistic, and I could definitely sympathize with both of these characters. And I think Effie is such a relatable character. What I did not like about this story, though, is how it ended. This was definitely you could tell what this book was leading up to, with as far as like the timeline, but then like I said, how it ended, that was a little questionable. I didn't like that. And I did not like how it did not touch on some things that happened. There were some things that happened with Sam that I just felt like, so we're not going to talk about that. We're not, you're just going to gloss over that. And these are some big things that happened with him, and some things that not only happened with him, but like happened between him and Effie, that I just felt we needed to talk. So like, we needed to talk about that. They needed to have a conversation about that. And I really wanted to see these characters like try to figure that out. I would have been okay with this being a little longer. I think this is, yeah, this is only like 345 pages, and I would have been okay with this being a few pages longer for us to see these characters have, some tough conversations. They've been having some tough conversations throughout this whole book, and I don't like how we just kind of gloss over some things. So for the most part, I really like that. It's just that ending I didn't care about, and some of the things that this just skipped over, I didn't care about that either. But overall, 4 stars. I would highly recommend this. This was a good one. So then my last 4-star book that I'm going to talk about. So this is Flaw in the Design by Nathan Oates. This is a adult psychological mystery. The whole time that I listened to this on audio, but the whole time that I was listening to this, all I kept thinking was, this is like reading like a Lifetime movie. Back in the day when Lifetime used to have those really good Lifetime movies, this is what I would imagine a really good Lifetime movie to be. But this was on my most anticipated books of this year. And let me tell you, this did not disappoint at all. So this one follows our main character by the name of Gil. And Gil is this professor, a writing professor, and he gets notified that his sister Sharon has passed away. And because she has passed away, he now has to take in his nephew, Matthew, who is 17. And Gil is really hesitant to take in this boy, because Matthew, when he was younger, he was like out of control. He had some temper problems. He was like disruptive at home. Sharon wasn't able to kind of like control him. And there was actually an incident with Matthew and one of Gil's daughters, and Gil and his wife were just like, we really don't want to take him in, but Matthew really doesn't have anywhere to go. And so they end up taking Matthew in. Over the course of the story, we learn some background into Gil and his sister Sharon's relationship. And we kind of learn why they were on the outs, and why at the time of Sharon's death, they weren't speaking, and why they weren't on the best terms, and why there was all this like rift in their family. We also begin to learn that there is some suspicion with Gil that Matthew may have been involved with his sister's death. And so we find out too really early on that Matthew gets signed up for Gil's intro to writing class. and he starts turning in these stories where he is kind of like predicting the death of Gil's daughters, and this is really unsettling for Gil. So, like I said, I gave this a 4 stars. This is a really slow burn psychological mystery, like I said, and not really a lot. Not much is happening in this story until the last maybe like 15 pages. But while you're leading up to those like last 15-20 pages, the tension in this book is insane because you're learning about, Gil and Sharon's relationship. You're kind of side-eyeing Matthew this whole time because something's not right with him. He probably did something, and that he was not the best child. You're getting that through these flashback chapters, and there are like these little small incidents that is happening while he's staying with Gil, and he's like taunting Gil, and something will happen, and he will say like these little comments to Gil, and like I listen. I really did like this, and I felt really bad for Gil because there are parts of this where you feel like he may have been, not you feel like, he was jealous of his sister in the life that she lived, because he his sister and Matthew, like, they lived this really wealthy life in New York, and Gil and his family lived in Vermont. He's a professor writing stories, and their Matthew and his family are rich living in New York, and so Gil sort of feels a certain type of way, but he also really loved his sister, and it's just a lot of drama within this family. The person that is at the forefront of all this drama is Matthew, and the funny thing about that is Matthew knows it, and I just really like this. I'm not sure this will be for everybody because, like I said, it is slow. I even thought that some parts of this was like really slow. That's why I was like hesitant on giving it a 5 star. I was on the fence between a 4 and a 5 star. There were parts of this in like the flashback scenes that didn't quite grab my attention all of the way. So I just couldn't give it a 5 star like I wanted to, but boy, the tension in this, and just like the build up between Matthew and Gil, and then like the ending of this, oh my gosh. This is like another one of those books where I was like, I could have read a part 2. If there is a part 2, if there is a part 2 to this, I would read it. I would pick it up. I would read, if they make a movie out of this, I would watch it. I really enjoyed this one. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend this book. So the last one that I have, obviously it's my last book, so this is my 5 star book, and that is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. This is a adult fantasy, and I buddy read this with Tori over at Tori Morrow. If you are not following her channel, you should. She primarily reads adult fantasy, science fiction. I think she might dabble in like young adult fantasy, science fiction, but primarily adult. She also reads other genres as well, but fantasy, science fiction, that's her thing. But you guys should definitely follow her. I will have her channel linked down below. But I saw that she was going to be reading this, so I asked her if she wanted to buddy read. Here we are. This was a reread for her. She read this one, I want to say a few years ago, maybe. This was my first time reading this one. And needless to say, we both enjoyed it. I'm not sure. I don't think she does ratings anymore on her channel. But like I said, I gave this one a 5 stars, and we both really enjoyed it. This one follows our main character, Locke Lamora, and the Gentleman Bastards. They are like a group of con artist thieves, and at the beginning of the story they are working on a really big con, and Locke Lamora, he is the leader of the group, and this con that they're working on is pretty big for them. It's supposed to be pretty lucrative, but it does not go according to plan. And basically, all hell breaks loose. Everything goes wrong, and Locke has to try to figure out how to get them out of this. Like I said, I really enjoyed this one. Now, the beginning of this was a little rocky for me just because of how the story was told, and like there were some sections where like flashbacks were just kind of like thrown in, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, I don't I don't know what's happening. But once I kind of got used to it, I really enjoyed this, because while we're getting this story of this main story of what's going on with this con, we are also getting these like flashbacks and these interlude chapters of how the gentleman bastards got together, and those parts I really loved. I love seeing how the group got together, how each of them got their roles in the group, and how these guys became the friends that they are. I loved the banter between Locke and Jean, and the two twins that are in there, and this young guy. When I say young, he was like, I don't know, like 12. His name was Bug. I loved like their banter between all of them, and how much they just like really cared and really were protective of each other. There's a lot of humor in this story. There's some action. There's some parts in here that are really gruesome and brutal, and this just has everything that you could want in a story, all in one. There's going to be some parts in here that make you laugh. There's going to be some parts in here that make you sad. There's going to be some parts in here that make you angry. There are some parts in here that, you know, not everybody makes it. Like, this book had my emotions all over the place, but it was also fun at the same time. I didn't never knew where the story was going to go. I never knew if these guys were going to make it. I was also at points trying to figure out how these cons were going to work and how they were going to make it out of these schemes, and I could never figure it out. So I just kind of went with the flow at a certain point, and I loved it. I cannot wait to get to the next book. I honestly, when I picked this up, I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. I mean, anytime I pick up a book, of course, I'm hoping to like it, but I just did not think that I was going to fall in love with Locke like I did. And I just loved this story. Like, when I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about it. I was always excited to update Tori about it. I think our conversations about this book was hilarious. And I can't wait to get to the next one, because there was some characters, a character in particular, that kept being brought up in this book that we never saw. And I kept waiting for us to see this person, and we just never saw them. So I hope that in the next book we can finally see who this person is, because hello, where are you? And they're supposed to be part of the group, and we never saw them. So hopefully we can see them in the next book. But I really enjoyed this one. This, I can already tell you, will most likely be in my topics of the year, because I just enjoyed everything about this, and I would highly, 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 highly recommend. So that is all that I have for you guys. Again, I will leave Tori's channel linked down below. If you guys are not following her, you should. But yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.